For me, Basil Polidorus is one of the most beautifully, rapturously symphonic composers of the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. Not only could he create these massive, beautiful walls of sound for essentially seafaring scores like The Blue Lagoon, Big Wednesday, he also had a real talent for electronics. And also on top of that, he had a great sense of brassy orchestral might and vengeance, which put him on the map with Conan the Barbarian. And with Robocop, it was a score where he was able to play all of these things.
Film music was always important to Paul Verhoeven and was taken very seriously when he would select composers for his films. He didn't connect with a single composer early on and then stay with them through his career, but would select individually the composer he felt would be right for pictures of different styles and genres. Luke Dicker scored his classic Fourth Man, but then early on after that, connected with Basil Polidorus and had Basil score Flesh and Blood in 1985, and then Robocop came in '87.
Basil Polidorus was especially gifted at scoring movies about masculinity, about traditional male heroes and warriors. And if you look at his best credits and his most famous soundtracks, it's for barbarians and knights and warriors and military men and cowboys. I mean, that was the ethos that he responded to. And Robocop is is really one of the classic examples of that, where you have this character who's a man of duty and of society and enforcing the law, and then this tragedy happens to him and he's put into this shell. And it was through Basil's heart that you get the sense of the man inside that shell. And so the arc of the movie of Robocop is him rediscovering his humanity, and that's what Basil was especially attuned at.
What you hear actually over the Robocop logo at the very beginning of the movie is a different theme. It's very simple, it's more of a motif, and it has this kind of ghostly quality to it. And that is really the theme for Murphy and his identity.
And you could say there's almost a theme that would be for his humanity, even under the most dire of situations. What you hear is Murphy is going through this refinery looking for Clarence and his gang. And it's a three-note theme that goes da da da, and then da da da.
Don't move. Go ahead and do it. Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
This motif plays all through his death scene, and it's almost unrecognizable. It plays as this very fast kind of repeating motif through that scene.
Basil brings in this almost descending brass theme that is just so full of outrage and anguish as it's going down along with his death.
It's almost his identity unraveling. And then later you start hearing it at moments where other characters are recognizing that this Murphy is still kind of inside Robocop.
Come on.
The hero Robocop theme, I think you only really get on that first night out when he's responding to the calls and he's busting up the crimes, and then you finally get that march and that, you know, that energy and that machine and a melody that really cuts through and that it really sticks with you.
The armor of the Robocop suit itself seems to be heard in the Robocop theme. We hear the clanking metal, the the weight of it. And then, of course, as the orchestration becomes bulkier and heavier, Basil is literally having a hammer beat on an anvil as an aspect of the percussion sound of this score. Very driving rhythms and power.
It's almost kind of a branding theme. I think of it as more of almost what like OCP would have had written for this character, because to them Robocop is a product and a brand that they're promoting. So there's a real infectious quality to that theme. It's very memorable.
And there's something so wonderfully old-fashioned about how Basil uses the orchestra, and especially the muscle of the brass here, where again it's a comic book statement for this hero.
He had to do Robocop in England, and for union reasons he was not allowed to conduct. So they had a very traditional English musician who served as the conductor, and he kind of gave Basil a hard time about, I think, feeling the score was just a little bit beneath him or a little bit vulgar. The story that Basil told us is that one time, like after a session or at a lunch break, he caught the conductor whistling the Robocop theme. And he was like, ah, ha, 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 I got you. You like it after all.
What's interesting is that where Basil uses essentially downward music for his death, when Murphy starts flashing back to his human life, the music starts going upwards, da 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 da. Again, it's climbing back to humanity.
Alongside the aspect of the score that is very heavy and masculine are the more gentle, even heartbreaking aspects of the score that we hear in the home sequence, where he's looking back, remembering his life before.
And again, as he's walking around, flashing to himself as Robocop, flashing back to himself as Murphy, again, it's this growing sense of emotion and heartbreak, and the realization of how his humanity has literally been stripped away from him. And again, Basil's music builds with a sense of anger until he finally smashes the video monitor.
Functional space with a touch of elegance. Hey, have you thought it all over? Why not make me an offer?
Something like Robocop, it's not reality, it's hyper-reality. It's larger than life. And the music has to be larger than life. You know, the actors have to be larger than life. The conflict is larger than life. It's what we call today comic book movies, that often in a derogatory way, but it's really in a great way when it's done well.
The score's most exuberant moment is when Robocop raids the drug den. And at that point, you know, where you had heard Robocop being done in essentially lumbering musical gestures, suddenly the music is completely unleashed. It's moving swiftly. It's hitting his punches, his banging at that door.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Ah, fuck you!
And at that point, you can almost hear the theme singing Robocop. And it says da 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 da. And again, it's a fanfare, a sense of triumph of him dishing out just desserts to these goons.
Oh, any attempt to arrest a senior officer of OCP results in shutdown. What did you think? You were an ordinary police officer? You're our product.
There's basically a very simple kind of action motif that you hear it at the beginning of the van chase early in the movie, but it also plays for Ed 209, this other robot that Robocop winds up fighting. Ed 209 is a character in the movie, and the joke of it is that it's a robot that's basically very dumb, and it can't really think outside of its own simple programming. And what I like about what Basil does with this action motif is it's just one note. And it's just this one note that just keeps pumping over the action of Ed 209 attacking Robocop, and it kind of reinforces how dumb the character is. It can't think kind of outside this one note. But then, yeah, you see Robocop driven off and into the basement, and then confronted by his own fellow policemen, you know, who turn on him, and then you take that Robocop theme, this heroic march for him is given this big, long, you know, epic kind of tragic statement for how his, you know, world has been turned upside down. It's no longer heroic, it's much more tragic at that point.
It makes me so happy to see how strongly Basil's Robocop score has aged over the years, because the reality is it hasn't aged. It is as fresh and vibrant and as loved today as it was when he wrote it originally for the first Robocop film. It's not only captured the character, it's captured the character in people's minds and hearts.
And it's everything you'd want from a film score. It's memorable, and it's original, and it's emotional, and it's very smart, and it's very tasteful.